I go to the hospital canteen about once a week. My sister and family tell me that it's wrong. I work near the hospital and often have lunch in their cafeteria. My sister found out about it and criticized me, claiming that such places are intended only for patients. We quarreled with her, and her parents supported her side. All this develops into a serious conflict that becomes even more confusing after my bike disappears. Okay, listen to me. I work a few blocks from the hospital and get there quickly by bike. Their cafeteria is unusual with good prices, so I usually go there for lunch once a week or so. The food can't be called amazing, but from time to time they have a good variety. The staff even recognizes me and is always friendly. They don't mind me just having lunch, and there is much calmer than in any other local restaurant. I'm in the spectrum and I don't like loud sounds. Therefore, quiet lunches in this place are just a godsend for me on some days. Recently, my sister found out that I eat in the hospital, and she pounced on me with criticism that hospital canteens should be only for those who are in the hospital because they need it. I replied that I was doing business with them and not snatching food from patients' mouths. Besides, I went there only once a week. So, what's the matter? But she still insisted that I was wrong. Then she connected our parents and they took her side. They said that I should eat in the hospital only if I have a good reason to be there. I told them that they are all crazy and this is ordinary food for which I pay. But now, since neither they nor I are retreating, I'm torn apart. The situation has become just crazy. I never thought my sister could do something like that. Not so long ago, Ida 3M wrote to MLYA to get advice because my parents and sister were angry with me for the fact that I regularly eat in the hospital cafeteria because it is not far from my work. I enjoy peace and quiet on those days when I come there to eat. But the situation has escalated so much that I can't believe that something so stupid happened. My sister did the lowest thing she had ever done to me, and for a completely undeserved reason. When my sister found out that I was eating in the hospital canteen, she pounced on me, explaining that this food is only for those who are in the hospital because they need it. As a result, we had a big fight because of this, and I told her that I don't take food out of patients' mouths. Then she went to our parents to attract them to her side, as always, and they immediately sided with her as I expected. They supported her in the fact that the hospital canteen is not a place where you can go by chance, and we had a big fight. They chased me for several days, said I was wrong, and demanded that I stop. Then I turned to Reddit, and here I learned that not only did I not do anything wrong, but also that people very often eat in hospital canteens just because they like it there. I hoped that the situation would simply be forgotten. But a few days later, my sister called me and asked if I stopped eating in the hospital. I said no, and then it all started again. I got a call from my parents who were furious and behaved as if I should have stopped going there because they said so. I reminded them that I no longer live under their roof, and that's exactly the reason why I moved out. They take their sister's side in almost everything. They snorted and puffed about it. However, this time the quarrel did not stay in the house. Other relatives found out about it because the sister tried to expand her support. She was so determined to impose her will on me that she began to seek help from other relatives. But only our parents were on her side, and my uncle personally scolded my parents and her on the phone for it when I told him what really happened. He told them that they support my sister only because she is their favorite, and they are terrible parents since they play favorites in general. Then my cousin went with me to eat at the hospital canteen and said that he would also like to go there once a week because he also works nearby and rides a bike everywhere. Since then, we've already met there for lunch. He was very happy to find out that the food there is healthier than in most other places. He's a little picky about food, so this place has become his new place for lunch. And my sister got even more angry when she found out that now other family members are eating in the hospital. After everything came out, my parents retreated because of embarrassment. They apologized to me and said that, in their opinion, what was in the hospital was strange and that they just needed to protect my sister. I told them that they had been pleased with my sister for so long that this was all they did when she was up to something with someone. She treated me like an arrogant control freak and a bully since we were teenagers, even though I'm older. But I won't put up with it anymore. As a result, the parents gave in and apologized. Then they forced my sister to apologize to me too. And I could say that she hated every second because at first she tried to speak through her teeth. Later, my parents invited me to dinner as another form of apology. But it was more like a show to look good in front of the rest of the family because they told everyone about it even before it all happened. The dinner was great, I can't deny it. My parents cooked turkey, perhaps one of my favorite dishes. I love legs covered with gravy. Yes, I'm a bit of a pig when I eat them, but I can't help myself. My sister always thought it was hilarious, and these were some of the few moments when I didn't mind her laughing. That's why I didn't think about why she giggles so much at dinner. Later, after a family dinner, I noticed that my bike was missing. I parked it in the backyard so it wouldn't be visible, but he just wasn't there. I was scared because it's my only transport. My parents panicked a little with me, but my sister is quite the opposite. She looked happy and kept chipping. I immediately suspected her, but she pretended to be innocent. She even gave out the phrase, "I can't believe you think I can do something like that." I already knew that she was extremely petty, but it was a completely new level for her. That's why I said I'd go to the neighbors because I know they have cameras and I'd look at what happened, and then I'll call the police. My sister suddenly panicked, and I got angry and said I knew it was her, and demanded to return the bike to me. She started crying and saying that she had done nothing, and our parents immediately sided with her and began to scold me for daring to accuse her. In general, I had enough, and I said that I would go to the neighbors and ask to check their cameras, and then I'll call the police. In the end, my sister confessed and called me to come back. The expressions of the parents' faces after they had just defended her were priceless. The sister said that she was very angry with me for making her apologize for what she was still sure of was right. So she decided to invite a couple of her friends to come and pick up my bike during dinner. She said that her friends were in the minivan that was standing nearby. Then she started saying that I still can't call the police on her because I'm her older brother. Our parents also supported her, but I took out my phone and started walking outside again. They ran after me, and my sister begged and cried for me to stop. I called her a capricious pussy, and then I told my parents that I can't believe they still protect her when she behaves like that. My parents finally had a cup of patience, and they told her to make her friends return my bike immediately. She got into the phone and, snorting, called her friends. But then she suddenly ran away to her room to talk to them. I didn't hear anything through the door because she was whispering, and the parents also looked very worried. My sister would never voluntarily admit that she stole my bike. She just kept sobbing that it was just a joke again and again. And she also justified herself by the fact that it was just a cheap bike. I bought it used a few months ago for $50, but it's in excellent condition. And this is my main transport. My sister kept watching our parents to support her, and that time they just couldn't. So she just plopped into the chair, hugging her knees, and began to wait with the others. My sister looked more and more scared the longer her friends needed to return my bike, and she kept texting them. Despite the fact that her sister said that her friends were very close, it took them about an hour to bring the bike. Finally, they arrived in a minivan with my bike stuck in the trunk. He was completely wet and covered in mud. It's like he's just been pulled out of a wet, muddy ditch. The bike was 700C, so it's too high for any of them to ride. So they just drove up and stole the bike, dragging it into the van as fast as they could, and then left. I say they stole it because at that moment I was almost sure that my sister told them to get rid of my bike. If I hadn't pointed out that the neighbors have cameras, maybe they wouldn't have returned it to me. When her friends finally arrived, their feet were dirty and wet almost up to their knees. They begged me not to write a police report against them for taking the bike. I asked them to tell me the truth and pointed out that the neighbors have cameras. Did my sister want them to get rid of my bike? They broke down and said yes, my sister wanted them to take the bike and throw it into a pond a few miles away, and they had to go back and pick him up when they realized they had been caught. The bike was almost completely submerged in muddy water. Fortunately, there were no additional lotions on it, except for a removable headlight and a water bottle. But there was no bottle of water. I wasn't surprised by what my sister's friends told me, and I asked them to tell our parents about it. They pounced on my sister until she started roaring on the floor, kicking and pounding like a child. I've never seen my sister behave like that since she was really little, and I didn't like that she was still like that inside. Then she locked herself in her room. Her friends were forbidden to come to their parents' house. Then my mother forced my sister to leave her room and apologize to me again. Then our father made her wash and lubricate my bike from the nose to the stern under his supervision while I disassembled the headlight and cleaned it to dry it. By the time my sister finished, it was already dark outside. When she came back to the house, she looked at me like I was a devil. But her parents immediately stopped her behavior and said that they had never been so ashamed of her in their lives. She left and started crying in her room. I had a very frank conversation with my parents about my sister's childish behavior, and that it happened because they spoiled and indulged her. I said I couldn't believe that I had to be the voice of reason, but the fact that she cried on the floor like a child, kicked and pounded, showed that she is still a child because of them. And they constantly made me a scapegoat when she made a miss, so she almost didn't know the sense of responsibility. For once they didn't argue with me about it. And then my father silently took me and the bike back to my apartment in his SUV. Before breaking up, he also gave me some money to replace the missing water bottle on my bike. My sister and her gang often harassed me when we collided with each other. They made fun of me with the whole company at every opportunity. And I usually just ignored them because I was bored with them, and it annoyed them a lot. But after the incident with the bicycle, I received a lot of messages from people I didn't know, in which they scolded me for making my sister cry because of a stupid joke. Knowing her, I can say that my sister probably told all her friends a completely different story about what happened. I sent long answers about what really happened and even said that I have records of her friends confessing the truth. Some people in the sisters' college found out what really happened, maybe from my messages or maybe her friends were chatting. But it confused my sister so much that she came home and got hysterical about the fact that people called her and her friends bitches and bicycle thieves. I may not have been in college, but I know that students are very careful of their bikes if they are available. Many of them, after all, live on a meager budget. My sister said that someone even joked that you shouldn't leave the bike near her because it can just disappear if she has to apologize to someone. As a result, my sister was so upset that she refused to leave her room for 3 days to have a party of pity. My parents called me to try to shift everything to me again. I reminded them of our conversation, which took place a few days ago, and that they need to stop babysitting her and let her cope with the consequences of her actions herself. If she fails classes again, it's because she doesn't try properly. Then I pounced on them that they were just looking for the culprit to make her feel better. She created the problem herself, not me, and I'm not going to be their scapegoat anymore. My sister is an adult, and she has to behave accordingly. They seemed defeated and then apologized before ending the conversation. It seems that they sincerely hoped that I would just sit idly by and take the blame so that my sister would get better. But I will never do it again. Now my parents are trying to pretend that nothing happened, and my sister and her girlfriends avoid me at all costs, which I think suits me quite well, because I don't want any more drama. But next time something like this happens, I won't tolerate it from them. I didn't describe the details because the post was already too long, but my aunt and uncle gave my parents a hellish mess, and twice. The first time in person, the day after the bike was stolen. They discussed with their parents for a long time how their guardianship prevents my sister from growing up, and she won't be able to function without them if she doesn't learn to be an adult. The second time it happened after my parents called me to try to make me take the blame when my sister locked herself in her room for 3 days. That evening, I was talking to my cousin when we met to have dinner together, and he told his parents, my aunt and uncle, about it. And they called my parents to ask what the fuck. And then they said that they were very ashamed of them, that they were still trying to make me a scapegoat, and that they don't care that old habits die with difficulty. It must stop. I'll just say that not only my sister cried anymore. No one has told me anything about what happens to my sister in her college for a long time, and she avoids me. My parents didn't talk to me after that call either, so I have no idea what's going on with them. Yesterday, I was browsing YouTube and saw a video dedicated to my last post, and I realized that I didn't make the final update. So here it is. I'll start with the fact that yes, my bike is fine. I managed to avoid something rusting or clogging on it after my sister threw it into the pond. It wasn't new anyway, and there were no new creaks. I was afraid that something would deteriorate in it, but it's a very simple single-speed bike. So after diving into the water, it works just fine. I released the bearings. I also changed the rear sleeve and the tire myself a few months ago, and I still go almost everywhere. Let's move on to my brat sister. She barely managed to graduate from college, and she tried many times to dump her low grades on me and depression because of the incident with the bike. But even our parents stopped allowing her to do so. In the end, they reached the limit and began to stop her bad behavior, forcing her to sit in her room and study when she had bouts of pity or hysteria. They repeatedly threatened to turn off the Wi-Fi and turn off her phone if she didn't do her homework. She cried and said she hated them, but she resigned herself and eventually did everything she was told. In the end, she managed to graduate from college, but the graduation wasn't very fun for her. We all went to celebrate with her, but she wasn't happy. The reason is that she has no more friends, and she hoped that after graduating from college she would have fun with her ex-girlfriends from her company. But they all sold her a long time ago because she's a snot. As an ironic punishment, my parents began to force my sister to ride a bike. She hated him more than a bus. It's a cruiser bike her father bought for her, and my parents practically begged me to take her with me for the weekend to get her out of the house for a few hours. And I took it, but only because they politely asked and offered dinner. The last time we talked about it, my sister was still firmly on her own, believing that there was something wrong in the hospital for some reason. But she couldn't find a single good reason when she was asked why. Literally no one else supported her in this matter. Even parents admitted that they no longer think it was strange after they were told that the canteen was actually a separate enterprise from the hospital. And as another show for the family, they went with me to the hospital for a family lunch a couple of times, and they forced my sister to go with me. She looked strangely restless and openly stated that she could not believe that she was forced to eat here, although it contradicts her beliefs. She formulated it as if it contradicted her religion or something like that, and that's exactly what she was reprimanded for. That's why she just cried as usual. But she was told to grow up. I think she just stood her ground because she would have to admit her wrongness to herself, and she just didn't want to do it. Sometimes I doubted that she was not only a spoiled control freak, but also a narcissist, although I'm far from making a diagnosis for someone. The whole sisters company eventually refused to be friends with her because communication with her also let them down, since at least 2 of them participated in her plan to steal my bike and throw it away. They were all bullied when it became known. So the company blamed my sister for everything and stopped communicating with her to save its reputation. Although I didn't file a police report, the girls who stole my bike had big problems in the family, and the minivan they were riding, it turned out that it was borrowed from one of their parents, and they stopped allowing them to be used after learning about what had happened. The parents who owned the minivan even came to me to apologize on behalf of their daughter and also asked for a copy of the video I shot. That's what I did. Despite the fact that they were accomplices, the company dumped everything on my sister and left her to be eaten by everyone. I think now my sister knows what it's like to be a scapegoat. She was also laughed at for a while because she was forced to ride a bike to college and back as our parents decided that it was cheaper than taking a bus and her sister had no more friends to give her a ride by car. And no, her bike wasn't stolen or damaged. His sister just hated him. Her father also forced her to learn how to fix and maintain the bike on her own. In his youth, he tinked with bicycles and he still has tools. So he knows enough to maintain the bike on his own, although he doesn't ride them himself anymore. And he also taught me the basics of working with them. For those who said that my sister would do something even more crazy or take revenge on me, she didn't do anything like that. She's just bitter. She was forced to undergo psychotherapy, and this slightly improved her condition. But if it will give any real effect, then, as far as I know, it will be years before anything changes in it. But she's not trying to command me anymore. Since my last post, my parents have called me to dinner several times, and my sister hardly talks to me at the table. And it seems that she is even more annoyed by the fact that it doesn't bother me at all. Everyone tells her, even our parents, that she ruined her reputation herself. But she can't stop blaming me because she needs a scapegoat. I saddle and lock my bike when I come home since that case with the prank, just in case. After my sister graduated from college, the parents suddenly announced that her sister was moving out of their house. She really didn't want it, but they forced her to find a job and find an apartment right away. They said that her carefree days are over and it's time for her to find out what adult life is. Many relatives told their parents that her sister would not grow up if she did not live on her own and pay her own bills. Parents thought about it for a while because she was obviously their golden child. But my sister will never become an adult as long as they have everything the same. My sister is still not thrilled with it because she liked being spoiled by a leech. But she can't blame me for this because I didn't participate in this decision, and she knows it. But she repeatedly had hysterics in the spirit of it was just a bicycle, when she tried to blame me when things were not going very well in college. Mom once gave her a headrest and told her to stop acting like I was the cause of all her problems. And for me, it was not just a bicycle, but practically a means of subsistence since this is my main transport. Now my sister lives in a 2-room apartment with 3 other girls. She had to be moved further away so that her reputation would not follow her when she found a job. My mom was crying a lot about it. My sister works in the office and is studying to be a secretary, but she whines and complains that she hates her current life. But at the same time, she tries to poke me in the face with what she will do when she earns more than me. I just told her, do whatever you want, and she got angry that I didn't bite the bait. She doesn't like her roommates, and she has to ride a bike given by her father. She doesn't have to go far, just a few miles. That's why she doesn't spend money on the bus, and it's too long for her to walk. She wanted, if not practically demanded, that our parents buy her a car since they kicked her out of the house, but they refused. Because of this, she stopped talking to them for a while. I think it's obvious that my sister and I don't ride bicycles together anymore. It ended as soon as she moved. While we were still going together on weekends, my sister came up with immature jokes for me. I don't even remember most of them because I just ignored her mockery and didn't even pretend to be annoyed. Then she called me stupid or backward and rolled her eyes. Among her constant immature mockery was this: she tried to say that her bike is better than mine because it has gears, but she could never overtake me anyway. This, at least, prompted her to come in better shape. I think she just wants me to be an even bigger loser so that she doesn't feel like that. My sister obviously wants a car, but she can't afford it on her own yet because she doesn't know how to save money. She wanted our parents to buy her an electric bike for Christmas, but they refused when they saw how much good bikes cost. My sister has already cost them a tidy sum because they paid for all 3 years of her college education. As a little joke for Christmas, I gave her new tires for her bike, for which she gave me an oblique look. In 2024, her parents also had to help her financially a couple of times because she did not manage her finances very well. At the moment, despite how much she got from real life, she still behaves like a spoiled girl, denying everything. but otherwise she manages somehow. Although lately she often gets angry with me because I live alone and she has to look for neighbors to pay for the rent. I met her neighbors, and it turned out that they liked me very much, which upset my sister even more. I think she hates them all so much because they don't obey her will as her parents did. She really doesn't like it when people don't do what she wants. It must be a nightmare for her to live with people who do not obey any of her demands. Despite the fact that her sister moved and started working, she still couldn't cope with real life. Her behavior did not change, and the family continued to be in a tense relationship. One evening, my sister came home with bad news. She was fired from her job because of inexpressive behavior and constant lateness. Instead of taking responsibility for her actions, she again tried to blame me, claiming that I was the cause of all her troubles and pressured her with my success. This caused a new round of disputes between us and again attracted the attention of parents. They tried to intervene, saying that we needed to find a common language, but neither side wanted to give in. Her sister decided that she needed more attention, so she started spending time with new acquaintances who shared her dissatisfaction. She talked them in against me, manipulating the situation, creating false stories about how exactly my life hinders her success. One day, when I came home from work, I saw that my apartment was turned upside down. All my things were scattered and the keys to the bike were missing. I suspected my sister, but I had no evidence. In the end, I didn't dare to the police because I thought it would only aggravate the situation in the family. When I asked her about what happened, she just laughed and said that I was just too serious. The quarrel broke out with renewed vigor, and her parents sided with her again, saying that I was going too far, trying to hurt my sister. They even accused me of creating a stressful environment for her because of which she could behave like this. I began to feel that the conflict was getting out of control and I needed to do something urgently. But instead, I became more and more close in on myself, avoiding communication with my relatives. Despair was creeping deeper and deeper into my soul. Despite the parents' assurances that the situation would be resolved, it only got worse. My sister gathered more and more often with a group of her friends, spreading rumors and unfamiliar stories about me. Small incidents, from stealing small things to blocking the road, have become part of her habits. Doing self-flagellation, she gained popularity in her new company despite the fact that they were as immature as she was. Eventually, the world that was once a home turned into a battlefield. I didn't want to be in this place anymore. I decided to rent an apartment in another area to start a new life away from drama. However, this also happened during the outbreak, and it was not easy for me to make this transition. The difficult struggle began to absorb me. I began to stay at work longer, ignoring the need for rest and friends. Gradually, my physical form deteriorated, but emotionally I was still suffering. My sister and her friends continued to escalate the situation, making fun of me whenever she got the opportunity. Despite the fact that I did not participate in her games, every joke concerned my dignity and reminded me of lost opportunities. My parents didn't seem to notice how this situation had any impression on me. I didn't know how much longer I would be able to hold out in this atmosphere. Ultimately, the final collision cannot be avoided. My sister came to see me with her friends one night, followed by a loud exchange of words. I couldn't help myself and expressed everything I had accumulated. Instead of understanding and supporting, my sister reproached me, making me feel guilty. The conflict finally develops into the destruction of the last ties in our family. What could have been the beginning of a new stage ended in a complete disaster. I needed help, but my relatives were unable to support me. Now I was just waiting for this absurdity to become part of the past, hoping at least for loneliness, which would give the opportunity to adjust my thoughts in my head and return to normal life.